And also, we have to also keep into context who we're engineering for, who we're working with, especially in these times where uh, there's a lot of race issues, sexuality issues, a lot of gender issues in the world. We have to think about who we're designing our uh, engineering products for, the different people that we're going to be working with in different backgrounds. And so I feel like that sometimes can be underlooked when we're talking about engineering students. And being able to have empathy, being able to communicate with people of all backgrounds and treat them respect is something that I've seen is something that grows within engineering students as they enter the field, and something that I think is really important. So yeah, so the next question, uh, what seems to help people the most when they're studying to become engineering students? Sylvia, you wanna take this one?
Yeah, I can try. Things that the most, I guess, again, like everyone said, like study groups definitely have been very helpful. And again, like advocating for yourself and going to office hours and things like that and getting those help on things like that's super helpful because sometimes stuff is, it can be hard, and it's not easy. And, being able to help and also get practice collaborating and that definitely helps a lot. Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing I can think of at the moment. But AJ, do you want to add on with some?
Yeah. So I don't really want to say the same thing as everyone else. So I'm just gonna bring up the fact that engineering is a hard field. Obviously, like as a sophomore, I'm right in the thick of it, and it's only gonna ramp up. But something that me and my colleagues have really found useful is just making time for yourself to check in and make sure that you're doing all right. You're not becoming overwhelmed by coursework. You're not becoming too burnt out. And a lot can be said about taking a study break, taking a mental day off in order to reassess where you are mentally, and to make sure that you're not overbearing yourself uh, too much. Because as we take all these math science courses, it can become a little much. And so it's really important that uh, we don't just stay in all the time. We don't just do math problems for 8 hours straight, as I have done, obviously in the past. But uh, instead, we take time for ourselves, whether that's to join one of the student groups at the U or to take a fun class, whether it's at your own high school or within the U. There's some great lib ed courses that can really break up the monotony of just taking STEM classes every day. And so uh, I don't think we have much to say about the FE other than in the civil engineering department where we're from. Civil engineering, the FE is obviously really, really important, and so important that most of our advisors are going to start telling people that they should start studying or at least look into the requirements of the FE as early as the summer after junior year so they can graduate with that under their belt. But what some common classes taken for the engineering major? So like everyone said before, we have, our math, physics, chemistry, biology, if that applies to you. But another course that you guys can look forward to, uh, whether you guys go to the U as a freshman, is I'm gonna plug Ben's course here, CSE 1001. And as I was saying, with all the great resources that we have, whether it's student groups or whatever, CSE 1001 is another great course that taught me a lot about engineering. And uh, yeah, it was a great course, taught me a lot about um, aspects outside of just traditional engineering that's important for engineering students. I'm going to be going to a career fair tomorrow, and part of the reason why I like CSE 1001 so much, and I hope you guys will enjoy if you guys go to the University of Minnesota for PSEO and your undergrad, is the fact that they teach you all these skills about resume building, about talking to professionals, about all these great things that can really propel you forward as you go up in your undergraduate years. Yeah. Anything else to add, Sylvia?
Oh, no, I just want to emphasize like what you said about like definitely this is kind of what I always struggled with, especially last year, but I'm getting better at is like going to those career, like the importance of networking, and getting those experiences that comes with being an engineering student. It's not just going to classes. There's more to it, and trying to push yourself to join clubs like Engineers Without Borders or American Society of Civil Engineers student chapter, and going to those career fairs like the civil engineering one or the CSE career fair, which is 2 days, so you have plenty of time to make it. And networking and doing these things called informational interviews, so you can learn more and make those connections, because those are going to be really important when you're trying to get those internships and trying to get that experience that helps you, build your career and helps people want to employ you, when you're done with school, because you don't want to graduate and just say, oh yeah, I completed my courses, I got A's, they're looking for a little more. So that can definitely be challenging, but it's also one of the more fun parts because it's not just school. There's more you can do with it. So
Yeah. So I think our overarching advice uh, is to build up yourself even outside of the realm of straight up engineering. Like there's more to becoming a good student than just being good at math or science. And even though you guys might not be, thinking about career fairs or building your resume or doing all these crazy advanced things, that might be once you become a freshman or a sophomore. It's really important to keep those in the back of your mind as you begin to think about your future, begin to think about your place as an engineering student. But overall, it's a great fun time, and yeah, I think it's all we have to say.
oh yeah, I was gonna add. There's like a
Oh, yeah.
question about how your time in PSEO helped you decide to go into engineering. If
Yeah,
that's
sure thing.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no. I was gonna say for me it was mostly like understanding that I wanted like when they were talking or Alex was talking about how knowing what you didn't want to do. I got a lot of my lib eds done in PSEO, so it was really cool to see like I was like, oh, a lot of these things are more research based and book heavy and writing, and I was like, well, I want something more hands on where I'm making these solutions and not just kind of studying them, and studying these problems. I'm like, I want to actually solve them. I want to, I want to be out there in the field and getting my hands dirty and making these mechanisms and things like that and understanding how these processes work. And, but it was also really cool because by doing that and what I learned in PCO from those courses was that I got to be like, oh, well, I understand these issues, and that helped me be like, okay, and I can see how I can do engineering with these, and I can use engineering to solve these social issues because that was something I was really passionate about, and helped me grow for that passion for that as well as engineering, and being like, I could see how these two could fit together, and that was something that I got out of PCO that was really helpful. As well as being able to talk to current students. It's kind of hard. I was always intimidated by it, but like it doesn't have to be like an interview. You're not interviewing them. But if you happen to sit next to someone in class and you're like, oh, what's your major? And a couple of people would tell me engineering, and I'd low key be like, oh, so what classes are you taking right now? Or I would always act like I was a freshman too. I'd never say I was PCO, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's a cool class, and just ask like what they wanted to do with that, and that was really helpful for me as well, and something I got out of PSCO that was cool when I came down to applying for colleges and deciding what I wanted my major to be. So I hope that helped a little bit.
All right, thank you. That was really insightful. Then we have some current students, Chloe, Bernice, and Ari, that are going to help us with our Q&A. And if they want to add anything else to what was said previously, you don't have to though. But if you have anything to add, just let me know. And then we will go to our Q&A. So we had some questions sent in, and students can also use I think it's the bar, and it says like reactions, and like do a raise your hand function, and then one of our presenters or current students will answer. So I'll pull up our list of questions that were sent in to us through our RSVP form. Here we go. So feel free to speak up or ask in the chat. Here we go. So this is kind of answered. In what classes of the U of M will give a student the best feel of what it's like to be an engineer? Anyone can answer that if they want.
Hi everyone, my name is Bernice. I'm currently a junior at the U of M, and I'm also a former PSEO student. And so I congratulate you guys for doing PSEO because I definitely know it's hard. And I'm also graduating a year early, which PSEO can definitely help you with also. So if you have any other questions about that, feel free to ask. But I guess the first question I can speak on behalf of like biomedical engineering is that we have this intro. I think a lot of majors actually have like an introduction course to the majors. So in BME, it's like BMEN 1601. And I know there might be like some blocks that you have to be a CSE student to enroll, but I think you should be able to like either talk to your advisor and maybe you can get like some kind of class code to enroll into these intro classes. And those are like 1 credit. So it's like an hour a week and there's very minimal homework. And then that can give you insight on like the careers that you can go into after college and also kind of like what the curriculum entails. So yeah, that's kind of some course. I know there are some courses that will allow you to explore some majors that are very low commitment, and it's definitely hard to pick with so many available options at the U of M.
Hi guys.
Yes.
Oh, go for it. Go
Okay,
for it.
I'll just answer in the chat, but you can go ahead, Ari.
Yep. Hi guys, my name's Ari. Like Ben mentioned, I'm studying chemical engineering. This is my last year at the U, which is super exciting. And I'm also minoring in computer science and sustainability studies. So if you guys have questions about comp sci 2, because maybe no one talked about that, I might be able to help you out. I would also say to get the best feel of what it's like to be an engineer, obviously like the intro classes are a great resource like Bernice mentioned, but also physics. I know a lot of students really don't like physics, but when you take that class, that's kind of your first dip into what the rest of engineering is going to be like, given the intro to physics class is normally harder, or it's more of an aggressive start kind of to your college career than what you'll feel going through your other classes, but it really starts to make you think like an engineer and develop a lot of those like deep problem solving skills where you need to like interpret a whole paragraph, understand what they're asking you, figure out what you know, what you don't know, where it's not just like math where you can approach the problem almost the same way every time and you'll always get it right. So it really gets you start thinking a lot more about how you approach things. And that was definitely the first class for me where I really felt the need to build those study groups that I know a lot of the speakers mentioned before that are just so essential for like setting you up for success in the rest of your college career.
And then we had a question, would being in the honors program be beneficial, worth it for an engineering student? And Bernice said, I think it depends on your interests. Honors are obviously a bit harder, but they adjust graduation requirements if you're graduating early. So then, does it matter for careers where you went to, for undergrad engineering? And I think this could either be, does it matter as in what quality of education or as in location? So I think anyone can answer that if they would like to, or if that feels relevant to what they've experienced.
Yeah, so I would definitely say yes and no. I've had a lot of industry experience where I've gotten to meet people who come from schools all over the country, which is really, really awesome. And I will say it matters a little bit for where you go for undergrad, because obviously if you're going to be an engineer, you probably want to go to somewhere that's ABET accredited, although most universities are at this point, but that's just a certain engineering accreditation program that is held constant across all universities who have it. Other than that, a big thing that I would say is kind of relevant for where you go with engineering is the resources and network that you get from where you go. For me personally, like I know the Chemi program here is pretty solid. So it helps that our Chemi department is able to bring in companies like ExxonMobil, General Mills, 3M, a lot of those really top, like big names, if that's something that you're interested in going into a career for. And that's also something that we're able to do because we are a big school. Not saying that you can't find that somewhere else, but yeah, I guess that's just my few cents.
I would definitely agree with Ari with what she said. Like, I think in the grand scheme of things, not necessarily. And Chemi at the U of M is obviously very strong. It's one of the top in the nation. So if you're considering going into there, like the U of M is a great option, obviously, but also networking opportunities. And if I guess I can also like only really speak on behalf of biomedical engineering, but Medtronic is obviously, you know, one of the biggest medical device companies in the world. And their operational headquarters are right in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So they work very closely with the College of Science and Engineering, and there's a lot of opportunities to network with professionals who work there to get insight on what it's like working in the medical device industry. So kind of echoing what Ari said, I guess depends on the school. There are different opportunities, and some companies in the area like recruit directly from the U of M. So yeah, it kind of depends on, it does, I mean, the location can factor into the degree, but you know, even at Medtronic, people graduate from all over the country. So yeah.
And if I can add to what Bernice said too, you know, think about where you personally want to end up as well. You know, if you have a dream that you want to go work in the East Coast or work in the West Coast or, you know, Florida or wherever, where you go to school has an impact on that just because the internship opportunities that'll be available to you. And I will say that there is some advantage in some places in going to like a Big Ten school, just because it does have that name recognition. So like for myself, I actually ended up working and going west because I wanted to be in the mountains. And so I'm here now and I'm in Bozeman, and it was really beneficial that I went to the University of Minnesota because it was a big enough school that people recognized it. Whereas if I had gone to maybe a little bit of a smaller school, people may not have realized that. And then it depends too. So like if you are going in state to save money, you know, think about that. Like, what in-state school do you want to go to? Because there's a few different options in Minnesota. Or if for where you want to end up in your career, where you want to live eventually, is it something where you consider going to an out-of-state school? That's something to consider too. That's something that I personally thought about. So it just depends on your situation and where you feel like you want to end up in your career. Because there's a lot to life after school. So.
Awesome. And then we have a question on what is chemical engineering like in college? Is it relevant to pursuing a career in medicine?
Well, the chemical engineering degree, I'm not 100% sure with pre-med. I'm not doing pre-med. I don't know if other people are, but a lot of it is the chemistry basis, which I know is a lot of what you need to take for pre-med. I'm not sure if anyone else has any other insights about pre-med.
Maybe I can add a little bit to this. I'm obviously doing a lot of advising. I'm not really in depth in pre-med either, but one of the things, if you're interested in medical school, is you have to look at the major and making sure that the major has all the depth and all the fundamentals that you need to do well in the MCATs, which is yet another test you have to do before you get into med school. So biomedical, chemical engineering, even chemistry, biology. I've had a couple people from bioproducts and biosystems engineering going to med school. As long as you have strong chemistry, biology, math background in these majors, you'll be fine. They're not that specific. You just need the fundamentals to be strong. So yeah, chemical engineering is going to work for you if you want to go to med school.
Some of the advice, sorry, let me just say this real quick. Some of the advice that we give in general to students at the university who are interested in pursuing medical school or any of the health sciences really is to definitely choose a major that makes the most sense for you in terms of what you enjoy and certainly what also might be considered a strong, what we call parallel plan. So if medical school is something that maybe doesn't work out for you, or maybe you get so far down the road and you realize that, you know what, I really enjoy chemical engineering and med school is definitely not where I see myself anymore. You certainly have some strong, options. One thing that Ulrika said that is certainly relevant is that you'll definitely need to have a strong background in those sciences. Some med schools also have requirements for courses in psychology, maybe public speaking and communication. And so having some of those background skills are important as well. But in general, at the University of Minnesota, and for our medical school here at the U, you can major quite literally in anything that you would like. It's just a matter of taking those additional prerequisites, like Ulrika said, that can prepare you for the MCAT and prepare you for the entrance at the university. So again, you could choose English, but you're going to spend a significant amount of time outside of your English major taking organic chemistry and biology and anatomy and physiology to prepare you for, the MCAT and whatnot. So there's definitely a balance to all of that. Ari?
Sorry, my computer froze. Did you say something in particular or just shot it back to me?
No, I was just talking a little bit about some of the prerequisites for med school and whatnot. If you had something else to add, by all means, please go ahead.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so I have some friends who at least started with the intention of doing medical school and chemical engineering at the same time. They've since decided that they don't want to do it, not because they couldn't do it, but because they decided they were more interested in something else. So it's definitely possible. And I would say it's a little bit convenient because chemical engineering has you go through the whole OChem track. So we do Gen Chem 1, 2, OChem 1, 2, and OChem Lab, which are all things that look really good for med school, especially the fact that you have to do OChem Lab anyways. Obviously, we don't necessarily get the bio component, but that's not a problem to integrate that into your undergraduate curriculum as well.
I guess adding on with the bio component, a little plug for biomedical engineering. It's very common for biomedical engineer majors to be pre-dental, pre-pharm, or even pre-med. We literally have a track or like a sub-plan within the major that's made specifically for applying to med school that will meet all the requirements. So unlike chemical engineering, we don't go through OChem 2 or OChem Lab, but that's also easily integrated into your coursework. But we also do have that biology and physiology component that also can be helpful for applying to med school. And yeah, I know a lot of, but not a lot, but biomedical engineering is, it's not uncommon to meet pre-med people in there. So yeah.
So as we get closer to 4, I just want to say that so if anyone has any like immediate questions, that would be great if we can answer them now in case people need to head out. But if you want to stay after 4, and if any of our speakers want to stay after 4 to ask questions, that would be great as well, to answer questions. So that just kind of depends on how busy or how long you want to stay today. So just wanted to pause right there.
There was a question in the chat. Can I just like answer it verbally because I feel like it would take a lot of effort for me to type it out?
Yeah, go ahead.
So somebody asked, what are some career paths that you can take with a chemical engineering degree? So I can't really speak to the chemistry side, and I know that that's a lot different. I know a lot of people who study chemistry end up going to grad school post undergrad, but I don't want to say that for everyone. In chemical engineering, you can go to grad school and do research, obviously, or you can go into things like oil and gas. You can go into food production, manufacturing. You can go into makeup. People have gone into consumer goods, so like toothpaste, sustainability, water. There's a lot of different things that you can go into, and that's kind of why the reasons I picked chemical engineering. So yeah, you can just kind of really go a lot of places, and then you can go to like management or manufacturing or research once you get to wherever you're trying to go to. So yeah, hope that helps a little bit, Marlon.
A couple of the questions on the slide I'll try and knock out here relatively quickly. The third bullet point, I don't think we addressed, can you go to graduate school, with in mechanical or aerospace with a bachelor's degree in math? The quick answer is yes, that is a possibility. However, there may be some prerequisite courses that you might need to take in advance of enrolling in graduate school to prepare you for some of the advanced topics. In mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering. Certainly a student in mathematics would have a strong background in math, obviously, but likely some computer science as well. that would translate very easily into, a mechanical or aerospace engineering. However, some of the additional courses in, kinematics, physics, electrical engineering, or just basics of, circuitry and whatnot might be missing from that student's background, which certainly would, again, need to be filled in before they were to, advance into a master's degree for mechanical or aerospace engineering. So the quick answer again is yes, but it kind of depends on their background and the additional courses that they may have taken. And again, that would be an individual conversation to have with students depending on what they did during their math undergraduate degree to prepare them for engineering coursework in general. And then the other question that I'd like to try and answer quickly is entering the workforce with just a bachelor's degree in engineering common? And I would say yes, very common. Again, most of our students in engineering especially probably are not going after a master's degree or a PhD in engineering before entering the workforce. Some of those students definitely will come back maybe for a master's degree, although not always coming back for a degree in engineering. Oftentimes, those students will come back for an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration, to complement their engineering program. On the flip side, I know we're not talking about the sciences here tonight, but on the flip side for science, that is very common that students would go to graduate school for degrees in chemistry or math or physics, whatever the case might be. But for engineering, it's much less common that students would go directly into a graduate school program in engineering as opposed to the workforce. Many of our engineering students go directly into the workforce with just their bachelor's degree.
And then there's a question for what is a typical workday for an engineer? I don't know if we have any currently working engineers that can answer, but if anyone wants to answer that, that would be great.
Alex, go.
Yeah, I can give it a shot. So I've been working full time for about, 5 months now. I started in June. And what I can say is that it reminds me a lot of your capstone engineering course that a lot of students would be taking. So the thing that's a little bit different is when you get into the real world, the projects are a lot longer and they're a lot more complex and they're a lot more drawn out. So in school, you're kind of used to this like 2-week cycle of like, boom, you get this assignment, you get this project, it's due in like 2 weeks and you're trying to study for like 5 other exams. So we all know how that goes. It's really stressful. In the real world, it's a little bit more methodical, I would say. And that just comes down to a lot of times as an engineer, you're being paid for your expertise and that you're going to go through all of these various possibilities. And so you have to analyze a bunch of different alternatives. And so as an engineer in the real world, you're going to do a lot of reports. That means you're going to do a lot of what we call preliminary engineering studies or feasibility studies. So before we jump into doing like a 2 or 3 year project that's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're going to sit down and do this report that's going to take 2 to 6 months. And we're going to work out all the feasibilities. We're going to look at a cost analysis. And so it works a little bit differently that way. You're going to have a lot of meetings. You're going to be working with your coworkers still. I will say that you're going to be doing less of the pure math that you're going to do your first couple of years. So at least for me, someone like me, that was a nice change of pace. Because I was pretty burnt out on doing a bunch of calculus problems by the end of my sophomore year. But it's different. The pace is a little bit different, but it's nice. You get to work with customers, you get to work with clients, especially as a new engineer too. There's so much learning that you still have to do, and there's a lot of mentoring. So they try to bring you up to speed because you don't know what you don't know. And so the engineering curriculum can teach you so much and they can kind of give you the fundamentals, but there's still a lot of learning that you have to do on the job. So, be prepared for that. But I think it also makes it fun because then it's not boring, like I said. So, and don't expect that you're going to do every single thing that you did in your 4 years in your career. There's different things that even within your field that you can go through in different tracks. So.
and you're going to be doing things you never thought of.
Exactly.
And how much would you say your daily workload is, Alex?
Yeah, that depends. And I would say I work for a really, really good company that I'm very happy with because they really value like a work-life balance. And it depends on what you're doing. If you're a salary engineer, you could be expected that you're going to put in 45 to 50 hours a week. If you're working hourly, maybe it's 40 hours a week. The company that I work for, it's pretty typical that you're anywhere between 40 to 45 hours a week. And it's pretty manageable, I would say. A lot of it depends on the different projects that you're involved on. You know, obviously in the real world, you still have deadlines. The scary thing is that the deadlines are huge sometimes, and they can cost a lot of money. But also the beneficial part is that they're further away, and as long as you're proactive, you do a little bit more planning towards them. And so I would say that for me, the workload is definitely a lot less than what I experienced in school, just because you're not say you end up sleeping a lot. I think that's the great thing about you can get a really nice stable job that's fun and involving without necessarily having to go to grad school. And it's rewarding, it's stable, and you get paid pretty well too. So definitely it's worth it. There's a struggle for 4 years, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So stick with it.
And then Margaret wonders, is asking if there's any comments or advice about getting into a government job as an engineer. If anyone has any knowledge about that.
I mean, it's definitely possible. Alex is in our bioproducts, biosystems engineering, environmental and ecological engineering track. And I would say maybe a third of the students from that track actually end up in government jobs. It's a choice. I don't think they do anything special about it. It's just a matter of when you start looking for jobs, you apply for them. They do require a different resume, so.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard too. And I've had a couple of friends that got in to government positions, and you kind of do have to tailor your application a little bit differently. The thing is that's different too is there's a lot more government positions for professional engineers. I will say that as well. So, you know, if you're a young engineer in civil engineering or environmental engineering, there's a lot more opportunity in consulting engineering. And that's just because you're young and you're cheap. And consulting engineering firms appreciate that because you can work for cheaper. And if you're working for a government position, a lot of times that experience is pretty valuable for them because you're reviewing plan sets that consulting engineering firms are submitting. And so a lot of those positions end up requiring your professional engineering licensure, which, you know, then you're looking at least a minimum of 4 years of working experience under another professional engineer. So something to keep in mind. And there's pros and cons to, I'd say, working in the private sector versus the government sector. Neither one is bad. It just depends on your career outlook and what you value.
Don't worry about the salaries. The government jobs tend to be paid a little lower than the private sector, but they do have really good pensions still, which is something that is not heard of in private sector anymore.
This is true.
And last
just
bit
to
I'll
add
throw out about
on,
government jobs is,
sorry.
Margaret, depending on the type of government job you're looking for, you know, the government definitely will recruit from our engineering pool. They show up at our career fairs, much like a lot of other companies. And so again, we've had, you know, federal agencies like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that have attended our career fairs. FBI is fairs. So again, there's a lot of different, obviously, government jobs, what it is you're looking to do in the government, absolutely. There are plenty of opportunities and oftentimes recruited from our university.
So then we have a question, would majors in mechanical engineering and computer science complement each other, or would they be more separate? And that is from the chat.
Peter, I would say, when it comes to looking at, double majors, which I think is the aspect that you're coming at that question from. So my internet might be unstable. I'm gonna here and see if it comes back. There we go. So I think if you're looking at double majors, it's important to think about kind of what your end goal would be with those double majors. Computer science is something that links a lot of our majors, regardless of what they are when it comes to engineering. Most of our majors, if not all of our majors, have at least one computer science requirement or programming or computer applications requirement, depending on the major. And so you will have that background that you receive just by nature of your program. However, if you're looking for something more definite and having a broader experience, a double major in mechanical and computer science certainly is possible. And certainly could be marketable. But if you just have like a passing interest in computer science and mechanical engineering is your focus, I would say focus on the mechanical engineering necessarily double major in there. Maybe a minor could be an option, or just taking some additional computer science courses. Especially because you're a PSEO student, you would likely have some additional flexibility in your schedule as a university student, and it would give you an opportunity to take some additional programming courses just on the side. When I was a student at the university, I took the required, C++ programming course for my major, and then just because I was interested, I took a Java programming course on the side, in my program as well. So again, I don't know that I would necessarily encourage that as a double major, but a lot of it depends on what your end goal is and what you hope to accomplish with that.
I will say too, I have a few courses more than the comp sci minor, but something that I feel like a lot of people are starting to notice in industry is that you don't necessarily need the piece of paper for a comp sci degree. A lot of computer science is more how much can you prove that you know what you know, because these like coding skill, like hackathon, all those things are becoming a lot more popular. So if you go through like that type of accelerator teaching program, that's almost as valuable to many companies as the full major is, just because they're setting you up so much more focused for getting a job in software engineering, in computer science, than going through the whole 4-year degree.
All right, and because we had a lot of questions and I don't want us to go super over for our presenters, if anyone has any like questions that they want to ask like right now, we're gonna kind of skip past the questions that we received before the meeting, so that we can wrap up. So if anyone has any questions that didn't get answered that they would like answered, please do so now in the chat or just speak up.
I have a quick question about internships. So I've done PSEO for 2 years, and I am wondering if I am able to get an internship over the summer at the U of M.
So Michaela, that's, I guess, kind of a complicated question. And in some cases, I would say, yes, that could be a possibility for you based on your previous course background and kind of where you stand with, your completed courses. In other areas, it might be more complicated, for many reasons, some of which might be, your age and the fact that you're not enrolled at the university yet, as a university student, that is. So again, it's kind of a complicated answer. I would definitely have for students who are seeking access as a PSEO student and definitely, seek out. So again, I don't know that there's a strong yes or no answer to that. I think a lot of it would depend on the opportunity. And it would also depend on, the courses that you've completed and how you've prepared yourself for a potential internship. So I guess the most definitive answer I could probably give you is maybe. And again, a lot of it would depend on the individual circumstances.
Thank you.
So Josh, your question about how is a career in engineering industry different from a career in science and industry? Um, Again, that one is also very dependent on kind of, the industry that you might be pursuing. But as you heard from one of our presenters, Professor Ulrika Schörner, she is a scientist by training and by education, and now teaches in an engineering department here at the university. And I think that you would find that there are certainly some very common crossovers that will occur similar to that in engineering and in industry away from academia. So again, for example, a student in math or statistics certainly, might have a job title that is, as a quality engineer or something similar, where basically they're analyzing data and running over experiments and simulations to ensure that their final product is, what they say it is, and certainly is a quality product. And so I don't know that there was a distinct hard line, that would be different between engineering versus science and industry. I think a lot of it would depend on kind of the industry that you're pursuing and kind of what the qualifications for those positions would be. But I think, and maybe Alex can comment on this as well, I think you'd find a lot of crossover. Scientists that are working with engineers and engineers that are working with scientists and vice versa. Again, there would be a lot of crossover in those areas just because those things work hand in hand. And that is, I guess, one of the good reasons that the university has arranged the physical sciences and engineering in the same program here at the Twin Cities campus. So again, wonderful opportunities to cross over.